And then the last great empire that there ever would be the Rome Empire. And this was a terrifying and frightening beast. And it had the legs of iron and the feet of clay. And this would be the Roman Empire, which basically started in 63 BC, and it will be the empire that will come back to life again and be ruling at the end when Jesus Christ sets up his earthly kingdom here on this earth. That Psalm 2 and then the angel Gabriel told Mary about her son in Luke chapter 1. And that gives us a pretty interesting background here of that, okay? And also another thing that we really need to look at is, but first of all, there's some, I'm giving you some background that you need to study. And as we go further in Revelation, this Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7 is going to be key. We're going to get a lot of information from this. But this red dragon here, we know from chapter 12, verse 9, it represents Satan. The 7 heads with crowns, we are told about this in another place, and we really are told about this in a Revelation chapter 17. But later on, we're going to be going back to Daniel 7, where Daniel interprets a dream, and he tells us about these kingdoms and what's going on here during this last time. And let's just go ahead and look at this real quick. Let's go to chapter 7. Let's look at verse 7. After that, and I'm not reading the whole chapter here. I'm just kind of trying to give you a review, so I can show you where I'm getting the documentation where this stuff in Revelation is being answered here in chapter 12. But Daniel chapter 7, verse 7 says, "After that, in my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was a fourth beast, this fourth kingdom, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth." Now, what you're going to find out here is this is Daniel's vision that he had. And what we're going to find out here is Daniel saw these same 4 kingdoms, but he saw it from a spiritual perspective. Nebuchadnezzar saw these 4 kingdoms from a worldly perspective. Okay? So these are the same kingdoms here that Daniel is also seeing in a vision, in a dream himself. Okay? But Daniel is seeing it from a different perspective. He is seeing them as a beast, as a creature. But this fourth beast, he said, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever it was left. And it was different from all the other former beasts or kingdoms. And it had 10 horns. 10 horns. Okay, while I was thinking about the 10 horns, there before me was another horn, a little one, which came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. This horn had eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth that spoke boastfully. Now, I don't want to get into this real in detail on this chapter. We'll get into this later on, but this little horn is a picture of the Antichrist himself that Daniel is seeing. And one of the characteristics that the Bible gives this man for some reason is he seems to be likes to talk a lot. He seems to be you get the impression that he is very boastful, very proud, very arrogant, and he likes to run his mouth. I mean, the Bible almost seems to give us this impression because all the time it says this. This horn had eyes like the eyes of a man and a mouth that spoke boastfully. It's telling us this. Okay. And now let's just go ahead and go on down to verse 15 for just a little bit more insight while we're in chapter 7. And we're going to go back to chapter 7 when we get into these next chapters. I, Daniel, was troubled in spirit, and the vision that passed through my mind disturbed me. I approached one of those standing there, these are angels, and asked him the true meaning of all this. So he told me and gave me the interpretation of these things. The four great beasts, and here it is, the Bible interprets the Bible. The four great beasts are four kingdoms that will rise from the earth. Okay, verse 19. Then I wanted to know the true meaning of the fourth beast, which was different from all the others and most terrifying, with its iron teeth and bronze claws, the beast that crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. I also wanted to know about the 10 horns on its head and about the other horn that came up, before which 3 of them fell, the horn that looked more imposing than the others, and that it had eyes, this Antichrist guy, and a mouth that spoke boastfully. Here's that word boastfully again. As I watched, this horn was waging war against the saints and defeating them. I don't want to get into this now. But people, there's a verse in the Bible that the gates, that tells us the gates of hell shall not prevail against the church. Okay, we have this promise now. Okay, but when we get into this tribulation time, and you haven't made a profession of faith, and you go into this tribulation time, and let's just say you trust Christ as your personal Savior there, or you trust in God somehow, some way, you may have to literally give your life up. I mean, you may have to really literally shed your blood. You're going to have to make a conscious decision there, and because Satan is going to be allowed to prevail over all people at that time. Okay, except maybe we've talked about these 144,000 that are going to be supernaturally sealed, and these witnesses and all this kinds of stuff. Even after these witnesses are done, he's going to be allowed to defeat them too. But it's going to be a different time. These saints that the Bible is talking about that are around during the tribulation it's not talking about the bride of Christ. It is talking about people that accept Christ and are going to be, around a throne one of these days clothed in white. But these are people that have trusted Christ through the Great Tribulation. And it's different, people. It is very different. So anyway, okay, in verse 21, as I watched, this horn was waging war against the saints and defeating them until the Ancient of Days came and pronounced judgment in favor of the saints of the Most High, and time came when they possessed the kingdom. He gave me this explanation. The fourth beast is the fourth kingdom that will appear on earth. It will be different from all the other kingdoms and will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. Jesus made that prediction, The 10 horns are 10 kings who will come from this kingdom. After them, another king will arise, different from the earlier ones. He will subdue 3 kings. He will speak against the Most High and oppress his saints and try to change the set times and the laws. The saints will be handed over to him for a time, times, and a half a time. For 3.5 years, people. If you wait till then, you're who knows what might happen to you. I mean, you're going to be ultimately get saved, and you're not going to have to go into an eternal hell, but you might have to give up your life during this time, people. It's a different time. It's a different time. That's why Jesus said, "Pray that you be found worthy to escape all these things." And I've read that before too. Okay, now let's go on, so that we kind of got some of the answers there for Revelation chapter 12. But I'd like to go forward here and just kind of give you some other documentation, because we've got to get the idea. We've got to get the answer to the 7 heads with crowns, and then the 10 horns. So let's just go to Revelation chapter 17. Let's go ahead and let's see what this says. And once we get this down, people, the rest of this chapter is pretty easy. And once we get this down, later on, we're going to understand more and more about when it talks about these other beasts that are going to rise up. When this little horn, this Antichrist in these next chapters, when he comes up with this false prophet, we're going to have a better understanding about this. Okay, let's go to Revelation chapter 17, verses 7 through 12, and this is one of the most amazing things that is going to happen. Here, I want to get ahead of myself. Let's read this first. This is why most of the world is going to be, the world is going to be deceived. And if it were possible, the Bible says the very elect will be deceived. Matter of fact, even the nation of Israel, this Antichrist, this beast, is going to deceive Israel. I mean, he's going to sign a peace agreement with them people, and they're going to be deceived, people. Okay, let's go to Revelation chapter 17, verses 7 through 12. Okay, let's go on to verse 8. 17:8. The beast which you saw once was, now is not, and will come up out of the abyss. Now we read about this beast, this angel of the abyss that comes up out of this pit in, I think, Revelation chapter 9, I believe, where this demonic army comes out of this abyss, and it says they have a king over them, and it gives his name in Greek as Apollo, and his Hebrew name is Abaddon. Okay, but the beast which you saw once was, this is the angel talking to John, now is not, and will come up out of the abyss, and will go to his destruction. The inhabitants of the earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the creation of the world, will be astonished when they see the beast, because he once was, now is not, and yet will come. Now this is where we're going to answer the question about what's going on here in chapter 12. We need the question answered, what are the 7 heads with crowns, and what are the 10 horns? This calls for a mind of wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits. Now, if you undo much prophecy and you understand that, the 7 hills is a representation of Rome. And this last kingdom that we talk about is the revived Roman Empire. And Rome, there's even coins, like around Italy and stuff like that you can get that have a picture of 7 hills. Rome is a picture of 7 hills, a city with 7 hills. Okay, they are also 7 kings. 7 kings. The 7 heads are 7 hills, and they're also 7 kings. Now this is where it gets really interesting. 5 have fallen. 1 is, and the other has not yet come. But when he does come, he must remain for a while longer. The beast who once was and now is not is an 8th king. This is the Antichrist. We're going to get at him later. I don't really want to spend a lot of time on him now. He belongs to the 7 and is going to his destruction. Now here's what I'm trying to get to tonight. The 10 horns. I want to define this. And then I want to just kind of enlighten you just a little bit here about these kings here. The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but who for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast. They have one purpose and will give their power and authority to the beast. They will make war against the Lamb, but the Lamb will overcome them because he is the Lord of lords and King of kings. And with him will be called chosen and faithful followers. All right. Interesting. Awesome. So we know that the red dragon is Satan. We found that as identified in chapter 12, verse 9. We know the 7 heads with crowns represent 7 hills and 7 kings. And we know that the 10 horns represent 10 kings that will arise during this time of tribulation. Okay, I want to just spend just a little bit of time here, and I want to try to give you a picture of what is going to happen. And we'll get into this more later on, but this is something that, This is incredible stuff, people.